Zelda, a popular female protagonist in an iconic action-adventure game franchise created by the Japanese game designers Shigeru Miyamoto and Takashi Tezuka. As someone who grew up playing Atari 2600 games into the early 1990s, I could not have imagined what it would have felt like playing The Legend of Zelda back in 1986. Sadly, I never got to experience this classic, or any other Zelda games, till much later. But it is a franchise that I now deeply appreciate and cherish, and has become one of my favorite gaming franchises of all time. It took me a while to get there though, so let's start from the beginning. I was one of very few who opted to go with the N64 over the PlayStation 1 among my circle of friends. Wave Race, Diddy Kong Racing, and Star Fox 64 were just some of the many N64 games that I fell in love with instantly. By that time, I was well aware of the Zelda franchise, but I never got the chance to experience the games for myself. That would change soon, as one of my close friends got himself The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. We usually had a group of friends that would gather around to play a few rounds of GoldenEye or perhaps some Madden 64, but one day my friend started playing Ocarina of Time, and I watched his playthrough of the very first dungeon. It was amazing. I got to try the game a little for myself, and history was made. I had finally played my first ever Zelda game. As good as that felt, I never got the game for myself, and time passed by. I remember seeing many commercials for Majora's Mask, but I never bothered to dive into its world. I completely skipped over the GameCube generation, but then came the Wii and the DS. Two outstanding pieces of Nintendo hardware that got a lot of love from me. I got to play Skyward Sword and Spirit Tracks, and while I made decent progress in both, the motion controls and touchpad gimmicks eventually got to me, and I dropped both games well before their ends. Next came the Wii U with some amazing Zelda support, like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess to name a few, but unfortunately, I never made the time to try out these games. So by now you're probably wondering, how is Zelda one of my favorite video game franchises of all time? The answer is really quite simple: the Nintendo Switch. I was lucky enough to get the Switch early on release day, and like many others, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild was a day one purchase for me. 2017 was a very interesting year for me in terms of gaming, as I only beat a total of 7 games that year. By far my lowest total ever, but it was also one of my greatest gaming years as well, because after 30 plus years, I had finally beaten a Zelda game. And one of the greatest Zelda games ever created at that. On one end, I felt relieved and honored that I was now part of the unofficial Zelda gaming club, but on the other, I felt saddened that I had only just scratched the proverbial surface of what this franchise had to offer. It was time to really dive deeper into what made this franchise so iconic, so I tried a reimagined classic, The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. By this time, the Switch was becoming one of my favorite consoles to play on, and experiencing the entire 15 or so odd hour campaign of Link's Awakening gave me some much needed appreciation for the classic Zelda formula. It was a perfect blend of classic world and dungeon exploration with a modern coat of paint. I loved it, and I cannot wait to replay it in the near future. I still had some more Zelda business to attend to, so next came The Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword, a game that I had previously dropped on the Wii because of controls, but now, with a completely reworked control scheme, it was the perfect chance to finally see this game to the end. And that is exactly what I did. Once again, it was a memorable experience that I will not forget. The controls were not perfect, but they worked well enough for me. I really felt an amazing sense of adventure while riding Loftwing or exploring the amazing dungeons scattered throughout its magnificent world. The game had many ideas that were implemented in Breath of the Wild, and it was great to notice that Link. By now, I was feeling it. I had beaten 3 amazing Zelda games, but the best of the bunch was yet to come. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was on another level for me. The ability to customize your weapons and gear really opened so many possibilities on how and when to complete missions. I fell in love with the dungeon designs, and even the shrine challenges were so entertaining. Beating Tears of the Kingdom made me realize that now any new Zelda game would be a must-play for me. I didn't stop there though. Through my Nintendo Switch Online membership, I played the original Legend of Zelda and Ocarina of Time. Both games are still very playable to this day and offered a great perspective as to why these games are so highly regarded, especially Ocarina of Time. And while I have not beaten either one of those games yet, it's really just a matter of when, and not if, I'll reach the finish line. And finally, there is The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, releasing in September, which will undoubtedly be a day one pick up and play for me. My Zelda experiences have been nothing short of memorable, and I hope to continue experiencing games from this amazing franchise for many, many more years to come.